CBS Sports recently named the Cowboys' big three, Dak, Amari Cooper, Zeke, the third best trio in the league behind the Saints, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara trio, and the Chiefs combo of Patrick Mahomes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Tyreek Hill. A lot of respect for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think that is definitely warranted. Neek, we're going to start with you on this one. Is this too much respect for the Cowboys triplets?
Absolutely not. Like, I don't understand. I feel like there's obvious that Dak Prescott is one of the best quarterbacks in the league based off his performance last year. It's obvious that Zeke Elliott has been one of the best running backs in the league, and last year was no different. The only question mark there, I guess, is Amari Cooper, but he seemed to establish himself as a true number one. And I think that they've demonstrated that altogether they're a very good offense. They were top in the league, just behind the Chiefs and the Ravens for offensive efficiency. They put up some gaudy stats. So, like, I don't understand what the argument could be against them being there. The triplets that are above them, I understand why they're above them, but the people that are behind them, it's hard for me to think of anybody or any group that could surpass them. And maybe you could look at records and all that sort of stuff, but that's not what this list is about. It's like the best triplets, and it doesn't get much better than that. If you're going to look at Baltimore, who had a great offense last year, I don't know that you would be as high on anybody in that group other than Lamar Jackson. And so I can't see anybody jumping over them. I like them right where they are. I don't think that they deserve to go above any group that has Patrick Mahomes on it, or Drew Brees in that group, but I think they're good at 3.
I'll give you 2 groups I put ahead of them. One is closer, I admit, but I'll start with the Vikings because that'll be more controversial. I think I'd rather have Dak Prescott than Kirk Cousins going forward.
Okay, that's one.
I think that would actually be tough to prove. But okay, they are.
Okay, we'll take it as one.
There's not much separating those two. In other words, I don't think Dak is sticking his head way over Kirk Cousins. Adam Thielen has had seasons in his career, a couple of them, where he's simply been more productive than Amari Cooper. He's been targeted more, he's caught more balls for more yards, the whole thing. He has spent, it wasn't a very long time, but a time. It's like, is he the most productive guy in the league right now? Amari Cooper's never done that, even if you like him more going forward because he's younger. And Ezekiel Elliott's a tremendous overall back. Ezekiel Elliott's a tremendous overall back. Dalvin Cook is different explosively. Like, he's much more of a home run hitter. I think there's a very good case for the Vikings. And then Seattle. It's a little bit unfair because Seattle, it's not just triplets. I'm thinking about Metcalf too. But they have someone in that group, this is the only one in that group, who's sticking his head way above the other, his counterpart in the triplets, which is Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is way better than Dak Prescott. And that's the only place I see a premium, where you have Lockett, a really good receiver, and then Metcalf, a guy who looks like he might be special, and then in Carson, a real running back. So I'd say either one of those 2 groups could be put ahead of Dallas.
Yeah, so, I mean, we can start with the easy one first if you want to. So you agree that Dak is better than Cousins, so we got to win there, and maybe we call Amari versus Thielen a tie, or we can give that to Thielen if you want. I'm not sure that anyone would necessarily agree with you, but we'll give it to Thielen for the sake of argument. I don't think it's close for Ezekiel Elliott because he's been healthy and consistent for quite some time. If you're going to go back, if we're not just using last year, we could just use last year because Elliott's numbers are better than Dalvin Cook's just last season. But if we're using just last season, then Thielen does not compare to Amari Cooper. But anyway, Elliott's career numbers have been impressive.
Selective.
And last season, Ezekiel Elliott had more yards after contact, which I think you can attribute that more to a running back than anything else. And I thought when I was going to look at the stats that Dalvin Cook was going to crush Ezekiel Elliott in the receiving. He's not. Ezekiel Elliott has more receptions and a few less yards in receiving. So all around, Zeke has more yards for his offense, and he has the potential to have an MVP caliber season, which we've seen him do in the past. So I think that overwhelmingly puts that to bed. So now that you've lost that one, we can move on to the Seattle Seahawks, which you will lose also. So I agree.
We're going back to that one.
That Russell is better than Dak Prescott. How much better doesn't matter. We don't need to argue that. I'll give a check over there. But Carson is not even close. The difference between Russell and Dak, in your mind, I think the difference between Zeke and Carson is much bigger. And I do think Lockett is a good receiver and underrated, but I wouldn't put him head and shoulders above Amari Cooper. I think he's somewhat better.
What about Metcalf?
And then, see, now this is called cheating. You don't want to stick to the parameters of the game. How can we have a game if you won't follow the rules?
I'm saying you could take Metcalf instead of Lockett if you want to anticipate the upcoming season even maybe. This dude is a different kind of athlete, and he's very impressive out of the gate.
Man, you won't stick to the rules, we can have a game. You're bringing up quads versus triplets, but that's fine. If you want to take out Lockett and put in Metcalf,
leave off Lockett, put in Metcalf.
Yeah, I think that the argument for Metcalf or against Metcalf is he wasn't the number one option. So you get better numbers when you aren't the focal point of the offense, and they are in that situation. I don't think that's the same case in Dallas. So I think at this point in my career, to have for 10 years to go, maybe I would consider Metcalf. I'm not sure how good Metcalf is away from Russell Wilson. I'm not sure that he would have the season that he did without Russell Wilson. We've seen Amari Cooper do it in two separate places. So I think that we can attribute more of his talent to Amari Cooper than Metcalf. Let's talk about it. He's definitely, Carson's good, but he's not Zeke.
A lot of Ezekiel Elliott is a great overall back. There's no doubt about it. And he can catch the ball out of the backfield, and he can block, and he's just very well-rounded and through contact and the whole thing. But I got to tell you, if I had to actually rate on a per-game basis which running back I want in the NFL, I don't think he's in my top three. Like, the position has changed. The idea that you have a kind of Dalvin Cook, when he's on the field, I would probably take ahead of Ezekiel Elliott. Yep, I'd probably take him ahead. He's more explosive, and I think that's more valuable in today's NFL. And by the way, people were looking at me sideways a year ago when I'd say I'd take McCaffrey over Ezekiel Elliott for the same reason. Like, people on this show were laughing at me. I think everyone would agree to take McCaffrey. Maybe not everyone, but I would take McCaffrey before I would take Ezekiel Elliott. There are a bunch of guys who I feel are more explosive than Zeke.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.